Whiskey Jason here. Whiskey from the viewpoint of American in Germany, and I'm really happy to present to you, ta-da-da, the Dream Cask. Irish whiskey, Redbreast, 32 years old. One of 816 bottles, and I have 2 CL. 21 euros, $25 for this. A friend of mine, he actually got his hands online on one of these bottles, and he was so kind to sell me 2 CLs of his 500 milliliters. October 31st, 1985. Where were you? I think I was I was 10th grade high school, and I was at a Halloween party on the 31st of October 1985. This was distilled. My children have finished with high school, and now I'm thinking about what I did 32 years ago. Very great. Then, and on March 8th, 2011, they recast this, which means on the 31st of October 1985, they put this pot still, single pot still whiskey into a refill bourbon barrel. So a first fill bourbon barrel, America bourbon. First fill bourbon, Ireland. Refill, so this is the third time this barrel has been used minimum. It could have been the fourth time, I don't know. Let's say 3. All right, so the third time someone put something in this, that was this juice. They left it in there for 25 years. And they decided around 2010, 2011 to create a 21-year-old edition of Redbreast. Got it. And the first time it was released was on August 20th, 2013. And every year since then, there's been more and more that's been coming out on the market. And they had one of the casks, and they said, oh, this is a very special cask. Let's refill it into a sherry butt. So what I think they did, to be very honest, is I think they actually took 2 casks of bourbon and filled it into one first fill sherry butt. Butts are bigger, and therefore you can often fill in 2 of the bourbon barrels. If not, I have no idea what the angels stole in those 25 years, maybe even 3. So, and they left it in there for a following 7 years. Last year, World Whisky Day 2017, Billy Leighton declared that he was going to bring out a Dream Cask, a 31-year-old sherry butt, Ortolozzo butt. Well, it took almost a year for them to actually do it. That was then in May of 2018, and it took another 2 months for it to reach the shores of Germany. Was a pain in the butt getting it over here for some reason. But a friend of mine, as I said, he bought one of the bottles, one of the 816 bottles, and it's cask strength, 46.5%, and you had to be a member of the Birdhouse, which is the Redbreast Society. Cask number 41207 is the name of the cask, which was the first fill Ortolozzo cask. And there's 2 interesting videos online. One's a little bit of a 4-minute teaser, and there's actually for World Whisky Day almost a 25-minute live stream with the apprentice blender Dave McCabe together with the Master Blender Billy Leighton. So my nose says Ortolozzo sherry. Now, I have a problem with this whiskey. How can I, Whiskey Jason, have a problem with a 32-year-old Dream Cask single pot still Irish whiskey from Redbreast? Well, I do. Now, I've met George Grant a few times. The owner, so the sales manager, his daddy's still the owner. but he's going to be the owner of Glenfarclas. And Glenfarclas, I don't have a bottle real good. Yes, I do here. Glenfarclas 15. They swear on one thing: second fill sherry casks. First fill sherry casks just overpower anything. And this is what I'm getting. The Oloroso was so prominent, so strong, so dominant that I get very, very little of that 25-year-old pot still single cask, or that single pot still in the refilled bourbon casks. And that's a shame. WhiskyJason, I've only had 1,000 different whiskeys so far online that I've tasted in Germany, and about 100 and, I don't know, 50, 180 here in English. I would have used a second fill Oloroso sherry cask. Why, Billy Leighton? Maybe one day you might watch this. Why did you use a first fill? And why did you second of all leave it in there for that 7 years? It's a long time. I know it's recasking, but you really just kind of changed the spirit into something that I was not expecting. Now, I love the 21-year-old. In my German video, I actually compared the two of those. I had this much, much smoother. The pot still, the spice really comes through perfectly. It's a wonderful balance of the ex-bourbon cask, of the sherry cask, together with that pot still spice. Good. Perfection. This is an A+ whiskey. This is a heavily sherried whiskey that I would never actually realize was 32 years old. And that's the problem. Now, it is complex, it is deep, there is the pot still spice there, there is some wood, there is a little bit of the vanilla there, but it's still overly dominated by that first fill Oloroso sherry butt. Nice. Is it a dream cask? No. And for 500 euros for a half-liter bottle, I'm expecting something way out there in the universe. I'm expecting something much, 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 much better than just a good Oloroso cask moment. All right, let's try it. Very interesting. I get lime and lemon. Very, very good. Boom. I get some old wood. Boom. Vanilla. Boom. Then I get really, really nice, for a half a second, I get that nice pot still spice. Boom. And then, as if it's a tidal wave, a tsunami comes and just washes most of it away. Sherry. Oloroso sherry. New. And what's left is sherry, 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 a tiny minute little bit of the single pot still spice, as well as a little bit of the old nice wood, as well as some vanilla. But it's just over dominating. Put a little bit of water in this. Dilute it down to maybe about 42%. Now, the interesting that happens with water is it gets spicier. That alcohol really somehow kicks in. And it's amazing that it's a 32-year-old Irish whiskey with bite. And this is, it is an amazing spirit. It is a privilege to be able to try this in front and behind of the camera. This is history. And yet, I'm still complaining. Because I personally believe it could have been even better. Yep. Sherry, 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 sherry. I diluted it down to about 38% actually. Oh, now I get... Every time that pot still spice is almost intertwined with the first fill sherry. And actually, when you watch the video of Dave and Billy talk to each other, they constantly mention the sherry. And I can get a great sherry bomb for 80 euros. I do not need a 32-year-old Irish single pot still whiskey for 500 euros to be my sherry bomb. I expected an understatement. I expected a nice supporting role, and I did not suspect a guy coming out on the stage in red feathers and screaming, "Hello, here I am!" and the rest of the orchestra just kind of playing softly in the background. I expected a much cultivated, a much more smoother, a much more sophisticated whiskey for this price and at this age, and that's why I'm a little bit disappointed. And yet, nevertheless, it is still an A-. It could have been an A++, which I've never given, but it's not. It's an A-. Now, to be perfectly honest, if you would have put this in a blind taste with 6 other whiskeys, all of them, or the Lozo Sherry, all of them maybe from Ireland or someplace else, I'm not sure if I'd be able to pick this out as a single pot still. I'm not sure if I'd be able to actually say this is a 32-year-old. I don't think so, to be very honest. I would have said, hey, this is a 12, 18, 15-year-old max, 12-year-old Irish with a good a sherry finish. I would not have even said pot still. I would have said single malt. And that's such a shame. It's so over-dominating with that sherry cask. A disappointed WhiskyJason here in spite of the Redbreast 32-year-old Dream Cask. Now, the one thing I can always promise you is that I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be fairly objective. That A- is due to the price. Oh yeah, talk about price value for money. It's a D-. 500 euros for 500 milliliters. No. And yet, if they would have priced it at 800 euros, if they would have even priced it at 1,000 euros, I still think they would have sold out within days. Now they sold out within hours, I think. The 816 bottles were gone within hours. Because there's enough crazy people out there like me willing to pay a certain price for a certain product. And even if it's just a ornament. As I said, 21 euros for 2 CLs. Would I have paid 42 euros for 2 CLs? Actually, probably yes. And that's the problem. If I'm willing to pay my 40 euros for the 2 CLs, there are other people out there willing to pay 1,000 euros for half of a liter. And you just need to find 816 crazy people in the world to do this. So do not be surprised if there's a second Dream Cask coming out one day, and it's a 33 or 34-year-old. I do not think, if I remember listening to Billy correctly, I do not think this was the only cask they put away, but in the future we might be able to expect something else. And do not be surprised if they actually up the price even more. So, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American and Germany tasting, very rare, very exotic, Redbreast 32 Dream Cask, single pot still Irish whiskey with 46.5% and with a price tag of 500 euros for a half-liter bottle. Amazing. Thank you very much for watching, thank you very much for liking, thank you very much for sharing, and thank you very much for subscribing. Question of the day, what is your favorite Redbreast bottling? I do know mine. It's going to be the 21-year-old, and second of all, it's the cask strength 12-year-old. And then moving down the line, this would actually appear someplace in the middle. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.